It was a crisp autumn day when Whoopi Goldberg, during a lively segment on The View, made a comment that would set off a chain of events nobody could have predicted. The topic of the day was about public figures and their curated images. How some celebrities seem almost too perfect, too polished to be real. Whoopi, never one to shy away from controversy, casually threw Keanu Reeves into the conversation. "Keanu Reeves is perfect, isn't he?" she said with a smirk. But let's be honest here, folks. Can a person really be that kind, that humble, that generous? Or is it all just part of his public image? What's the real Keanu behind the facade? The audience, initially amused by the remark, was unaware of the deep impact these words would have on Keanu. What seemed like harmless banter to many was a sharp jab at the core of Keanu's carefully cultivated persona. To those who knew him, Keanu's authenticity and generosity were beyond question. He had always been a private person, choosing to let his actions, rather than words, define him. But the comment from someone as influential as Whoopi Goldberg made him question whether the world truly understood him. Keanu, known for avoiding public drama, wasn't the type to retaliate or fight back. But this comment struck a nerve. It wasn't just an attack on his image. It was an accusation that the very foundation of his kindness and humility was a facade, something fabricated for the benefit of the public. Keanu, who had spent years cultivating a reputation of sincerity, knew he had to act. He couldn't let his integrity be questioned in front of millions of people without standing up for himself. For weeks, Keanu remained silent, wrestling with his thoughts. His silence wasn't due to a lack of conviction. It was because he believed that actions spoke louder than words. Yet, the more he thought about the situation, the more he realized that silence might allow the misconception to grow. He couldn't let Whoopi's words define him. If his kindness and generosity were truly misunderstood, he had to correct the narrative, even if it meant taking an unexpected and bold step. The decision to sue Whoopi Goldberg for defamation took everyone by surprise, including those closest to Keanu. The actor, who had always shied away from controversy, knew that this legal battle wasn't about seeking revenge or making headlines. It was about defending the authenticity of his character. Keanu had never been one to call attention to himself, but when his reputation, something he valued deeply, was called into question, he knew he couldn't let it slide. Keanu's legal team, usually accustomed to handling contractual disputes and business matters, was initially hesitant. They knew that Keanu wasn't the type of person who liked to engage in public feuds. But as they reviewed the situation, they came to realize that this wasn't just about a celebrity squabble. It was about protecting Keanu's name and ensuring that his legacy remained untarnished. The lawsuit, which initially seemed like an impossible task for Keanu, began to take shape. In the weeks that followed, the media buzzed with news of the lawsuit. Headlines screamed, "Keanu Reeves takes legal action against Whoopi Goldberg." News outlets were abuzz with speculation, some siding with Keanu, others defending Whoopi's comments. The public's reaction was mixed. But one thing was clear. This was a battle of reputations, and it was not going to be settled quietly. Keanu's decision sparked debates across the globe. Was it right for him to take legal action? Was it necessary for him to protect his image so aggressively? Some saw it as a courageous stand for his integrity, while others questioned whether the lawsuit was just another example of celebrity egos clashing in the public eye. But Keanu, ever the private man, didn't concern himself with public opinion. He was doing what he felt was right, not for the sake of his career, but for the truth. The courtroom drama that followed was unlike anything the public had seen before. As Keanu took the stand, he was calm and composed, his eyes reflecting years of experience in handling adversity. He spoke about his childhood, how he had grown up with little but had always been taught the importance of kindness and generosity. Keanu shared stories about his mother's sacrifices, his struggles in the entertainment industry, and how he had always sought to live a life that aligned with his values. His testimony wasn't about defending himself. It was about painting a picture of the man he truly was. His voice was steady, yet every word seemed to carry the weight of years of experience. He spoke about how he didn't see kindness as a commodity to be sold, but as a way of life that should be shared without expecting anything in return. He shared his experiences of visiting children's hospitals, where he would spend hours talking, to young patients who were battling life-threatening illnesses. These weren't publicized charity events. These were acts of kindness that Keanu did because he genuinely cared. As Keanu's testimony continued, the courtroom grew more somber. His sincerity was undeniable, and many in the room, including the jury, found themselves deeply moved by his words. For the first time, they saw Keanu not just as an actor, but as a man who had chosen a life of authenticity, who had built his career on the belief that kindness mattered more than fame or fortune. On the opposing side, Whoopi Goldberg sat quietly. Her usual fiery demeanor was subdued, and she listened intently as Keanu spoke. It became clear to her that the man she had criticized in the past wasn't who she had imagined. He wasn't a Hollywood creation. He was real. He was someone who had spent his life not for the spotlight but for the sake of others. Whoopi, known for her own outspoken nature, began to question her assumptions. She realized that her remarks had been made in haste, without understanding the full scope of Keanu's character. As the trial reached its climax, Whoopi Goldberg took the stand to offer her own defense. In a moment that shocked everyone, she admitted that her comments had been misguided. With a trembling voice, she acknowledged that she had misjudged Keanu and that she had let her cynicism cloud her judgment. "I assumed that no one could be that kind, that perfect," she said, her eyes meeting Keanu's. "But after hearing your story, I realize I was wrong. I see now that your kindness isn't something you created for the public eye. It's who you are." The apology was heartfelt, and it was a turning point in the trial. Keanu, ever gracious, nodded silently. He didn't seek an apology, but in that moment it was clear to everyone that both Whoopi and Keanu had undergone a profound transformation. The lawsuit wasn't just about clearing his name. It had become a catalyst for change, not just for the two of them, but for the public's perception of kindness, humility, and authenticity. Whoopi's apology wasn't just a legal formality, it was a personal growth moment. She recognized that sometimes the things we say without thinking can hurt others in ways we never intended. It was a humbling experience, one that would stay with her for the rest of her career. The resolution of the case marked the beginning of a new chapter for both Keanu and Whoopi. They met privately after the trial to discuss what had transpired. What started as a legal battle transformed into a moment of understanding between two people who had once been at odds. Keanu and Whoopi shared stories of their careers, their personal lives, and the challenges they had faced in a world that often valued image over substance. They found common ground in their shared belief that authenticity should be celebrated, not diminished. Keanu, in his quiet way, extended an olive branch to Whoopi, letting her know that he held no ill will. He understood that her comments were born out of her own experiences and perspectives. Whoopi, for her part, expressed deep admiration for Keanu's unwavering commitment to living a life of integrity. The two of them, once at odds, found themselves united in their belief that kindness, humility, and authenticity were qualities to be celebrated, not ridiculed. In the weeks that followed, Whoopi and Keanu began working together on a charity project aimed at helping underserved communities. It was a partnership born out of mutual respect and understanding, a testament to the healing power of communication and forgiveness. The public reaction was overwhelmingly positive. People saw that even in the world of celebrities, there was room for growth, understanding, and second chances. Keanu's decision to stand up for his integrity and Whoopi's willingness to admit her mistake left a lasting impact on their fans and the world at large. The story of their legal battle became a symbol of how conflicts, when handled with grace and humility, could lead to healing and transformation. In the aftermath of the lawsuit, the story of Keanu and Whoopi spread far beyond Hollywood. Media outlets across the globe covered the outcome, and their collaboration on charity work became a topic of conversation in classrooms, boardrooms, and homes. People were inspired by the way two powerful individuals, known for their public personas, could set aside their differences and work together for a common good. For Keanu, this was more than just about clearing his name. It was about showing the world that authenticity and integrity were not just buzzwords. They were values worth standing up for. Fans of both Keanu and Whoopi were touched by the genuine transformation that had occurred between the two of them. They watched as Keanu continued to quietly do good in the world, not for fame or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. Whoopi, for her part, used her platform to advocate for greater understanding and empathy in the public discourse. She spoke openly about her experience, about how she had learned the value of humility and the importance of not jumping to conclusions about others. Her words resonated with millions who saw her as a role model, a person who could acknowledge her mistakes and grow from them. People all over the world began to reflect on their own lives. They started asking themselves whether they were quick to judge others based on surface-level assumptions. Were they too eager to put people in boxes, to define them by a single trait or moment? The story of Keanu and Whoopi served as a reminder that everyone, no matter how famous or powerful, could have moments of vulnerability, of misjudgment. It reminded the world that forgiveness, humility, and open-mindedness were traits worth striving for. In the months that followed, the charity project Keanu and Whoopi had begun gained momentum. They managed to raise millions of dollars to support communities in need, providing resources, education, and opportunities to those who needed them most. Their work together became a beacon of hope for others who were seeking to make a difference in the world, showing that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple out and create a wave of change. As time went on, Keanu and Whoopi found themselves becoming close friends. What had started as a public feud had blossomed into a genuine, heartfelt friendship, grounded in mutual respect and understanding. They often found themselves reminiscing about the trial, laughing about how the world had reacted to it. In those moments, Keanu would remind Whoopi how important it was to lead by example, both in their public and private lives. He would often share stories from his childhood, from his early days in Hollywood, about how his mother had taught him that the most valuable thing in life wasn't fame or wealth, but the love and kindness we give to others. Whoopi, who had spent much of her life in the public eye, was deeply moved by Keanu's words. She often marveled at how someone so successful could remain so grounded, so humble. The friendship they shared was a testament to the idea that change could happen at any point in life, no matter how old you were or how many mistakes you had made. Together, they continued to spread their message of kindness, compassion, and authenticity, using their platform to encourage others to do the same. It was clear that the world had been changed by their willingness to embrace one another, to forgive, and to grow. As they stood side by side at the opening of a new charity event, Keanu couldn't help but smile. He realized that the lawsuit, which had seemed like a huge challenge at the time, had led him to a place he never expected. It had led him to a deeper understanding of himself, to a stronger connection with the world around him, and to a friend who would remain a constant in his life. The journey had been difficult, but the rewards were far greater than Keanu could have ever imagined. As Keanu and Whoopi's friendship grew stronger, so did their efforts to change the way people thought about celebrities and the world they inhabited. Their charity work began to attract the attention of other high-profile figures, many of whom had their own stories of public mistakes, misunderstandings, or moments of growth. These stories became part of a larger movement that began to challenge the typical narratives we hear about fame and success. Keanu and Whoopi frequently spoke on panels and at events, encouraging others in the public eye to use their platforms responsibly. They spoke about the importance of authenticity, about owning your mistakes, and about showing vulnerability. Traits that were often seen as weaknesses but were, in fact, the marks of true strength. People began to view celebrities not as distant figures but as individuals who struggled, learned, and grew just like anyone else. The boundaries between public and private lives started to blur in a way that helped foster a more compassionate, understanding world. Fans, too, started to reflect on their own lives, and many felt inspired to reach out to others in ways they hadn't before. They found that small acts of kindness, of reaching out to someone in need, could make a difference. In many ways, Keanu and Whoopi had sparked a cultural shift. They had demonstrated that being a celebrity didn't mean being perfect. It didn't mean having all the answers or being immune to mistakes. It simply meant having a responsibility to use your influence for good and to learn from your mistakes when you made them. This shift in perspective was not instantaneous, but over time, it became evident that their collaboration had set a new standard for how people, both famous and not, could behave in the world. While Keanu and Whoopi continued to grow their charity and work together on several other causes, the impact of their story continued to resonate in ways they hadn't anticipated. Behind the scenes, countless individuals who had once been consumed by negative public opinions began to reframe their own experiences. The lessons they had learned from Keanu and Whoopi inspired them to rethink the way they handled mistakes and to approach their own challenges with more grace and humility. One of the most touching moments came when a young actor, who had been caught in a public scandal, approached Keanu during a charity event. This actor, once deeply ashamed of their past actions, shared how Keanu's example had helped them realize that mistakes did not define them. Instead, it was the way they learned from those mistakes and moved forward that mattered. Keanu listened attentively and gave the actor words of encouragement, just as his mother had done for him. He reminded them that the most important thing was to stay true to yourself and always do what felt right, even when it was difficult. The actor left that conversation feeling lighter, more hopeful, and with a renewed sense of purpose. These moments were countless, scattered across various corners of the globe, but they were all connected by one theme: growth. The small changes that began in public awareness began to ripple out, touching countless lives in unseen ways. Through their collaboration, Keanu and Whoopi had changed the narrative not only for themselves but for many others who saw their struggles and triumphs reflected in their own lives. Years later, the legacy of Keanu Reeves and Whoopi Goldberg's partnership was still alive and thriving. Both remained at the forefront of the charity world, continuing to support causes that uplifted marginalized communities and helped bring awareness to environmental issues. What started as a public feud followed by a lawsuit had ultimately blossomed into a profound, lasting friendship that had shaped both their lives. In private moments, they would often talk about how far they had come since that contentious period. They marveled at how something so seemingly negative had been transformed into something beautiful, something that had not only changed their lives but the lives of countless others. Keanu's quiet humility and Whoopi's unapologetic boldness were the perfect balance, and together, they had shown the world the power of transformation, forgiveness, and redemption. Their work together had sparked a movement, one that encouraged authenticity and compassion in a world that sometimes seemed lacking in both. As Keanu stood at another charity event, now older and wiser, he reflected on everything that had happened. The twists, the turns, the surprises. It had all been part of a journey that had taught him more than he could have ever anticipated. And it had all started with a lawsuit that, in hindsight, seemed like the catalyst for something far greater than either he or Whoopi could have imagined. It was a testament to the idea that sometimes life's most difficult moments lead to the greatest transformations. Keanu and Whoopi had gone from adversaries to allies, from strangers to best friends, and in doing so they had shown the world what it truly meant to grow, to change, and to live a life of purpose and integrity. And as they continued their work, helping others and making a positive impact, they knew that their story was far from over. The best was yet to come.